Hey, what's up you guys? This is Junior Trader and in this video we are taking a look at Lululemon stock today. So, we had its earnings and definitely even prior to earnings it was really in a brutal downtrend. We were seeing some signs of a rebound, but that rebound lasted for very few days and then today as it was earnings, we do have a collapse further on the downside of Lululemon where you see the red line on my chart, that is where the price is in the post market, $173 around. I'm on the daily interval right now. So in this video, I'll talk about, is Lululemon eventually a value buy only for the long term? If that is the case, what are those areas to watch? And what we'll have to see in the technicals also to see it become bullish again. It's not bullish right now, just so you know, it's crashing. Before going further, I also want to let you know none of this is any financial advice, it's only for education purposes, just sharing my opinion. Please do your own thing. So, earnings happened, and I'll be drawing a lot of confluence in this video as for why some levels may offer a value buy if this is your thing. If you are looking for a long term something, and Lululemon is one of your thing, again, don't get too excited. It's not bullish right now. It may take many days and weeks or months even to see any signs of bullishness, in my opinion, unless price action shows me earlier. But so far, we are not seeing any of that. Now, earnings, they had a miss on the revenue. They did beat on EPS. That is a really good reported EPS, the margins 3.10, but they all miss on the revenue, and also they cut their another guidance. So let's go over a little bit of what their guidance is and how things are really unfolding for Lululemon moving forward. And then we'll take a look at some of the areas on the chart and some technicals around that. So shares of Lululemon fell over 15% in extended trading on Thursday, that is today, after the company reported quarterly results that disappointed the street. Well, we did see EPS, the beat, revenue a little bit fell short. The problem is also here, it also cut its guidance for the full year. Lululemon reported revenue that stood at 2.53 billion, below the 2.54 billion expectations, while the earnings, they beat the expectations at 3.1, while they were expected at 2.88. However, the company slashed its full year revenue and EPS outlook after the second quarter performance. Lululemon now expects full year revenue to be between 10.85 billion to 11 billion, down from previous 11.5 to 11.3 billion. EPS projections saw a sharper cut to 12.77 from 14.58 to 14.78. So they are having a decline on both sides in the forward-looking outcome. The full year guidance now factor in a gross profit hit of 240 million due to the tariffs, and also I'm gonna cut to the chase quickly here as well, as due to the imposition of tariffs on parcel less than $800 in value. All right, so that exemption is no longer there, and that's where the thing is. And also younger rivals like Alo Yoga and Viore are also grabbing market share at the company's expense to further cut down on costs and streamline the cost structure. Lululemon also laid off 150 corporate employees in the month of June. We are seeing fatigue with the consumer, particularly our high value consumer who's been with us longer. So that's also a concern, right? These, especially with these brands which do have their branding or some sort of things, this is always a matter of taste and what's trending, and so this cyclical as well, right? Anyways, so that's a bit of what their earnings and guidance. There are some red flags that forward looking guidance has very little confidence. Anyhow, stock price was already in this ongoing downtrend, all right? And we are at now 173, okay? Now, is it a value buy? Not right now. No way in any way, okay? No way in any way. However, well, let's go to the weekly interval in just a second. Okay, let's go to the weekly interval first, and I want to provide you some levels where this thing may make sense if you want to look into it technically or build for a long term. Okay, this may make sense, but what are those zones? Where are some critical demand areas on the price action right now? So we are technically at one very close right now. Okay, so this is the first, pretty much the area where we are, but don't get too excited. You gotta see it tomorrow as well on Friday. If it doesn't come back above this zone, that is pretty much where this is, 166 to 173. If Lululemon goes below it, well, then it goes below it. Okay, then we'll have, there's another demand zone technically where we can look for it to stabilize. And that zone is $130 to $110. So yeah, it can fall down there. There's a room for that. And there are some more levels as well down, but we're not going to talk about it. Definitely on my tools, you can adjust the timeline and those levels would show up down there. But right now we are not there. Let's talk about first these two demand zones. Definitely there is another $79. So you know, around there it's a zone. Let's just do it right away. I'm just going to move the time a little bit in the past more. And yeah, there is this zone here, down here, that would be particularly 84 around. Okay, now we are at one of the areas where if this thing can try to stabilize, it will take weeks and months to see a proper trend form on this though. But this is your zone where if it can stabilize, we can start to receive some technical confirmation above $190. Otherwise, no. It will take at least a week. We need to see at least a week of stabilization above $170, and then with a breakout above 190 can only give you some technical confirmation. It's still going to be, it's going to take weeks and months to show any technical confirmation, because look, even when their earnings were fine, they were, they were still going down, right? Like, it's quite a run-up stock, but I'm providing you some areas where if you're looking for even dollar cost average for the long term, these are the zones you would be watching the price action at, and definitely you will have to let it, in the first particular case, get it above at least $190. If it loses below 170, then it's again a waiting game. Then we'll have to see around $130, or otherwise we see somewhere else. But this is the stronger, more magnet $130 where it would make more sense to see. And I would say $130 is the strongest demand zone right now among all these three. All right, the ones that I have provided you. And definitely, I don't expect this thing to break below 83. Or like 83, I would consider is like, you, for the long term investment. You know, it's with a company like Lululemon. This would, for the long term, would make the best sense. Like, this is where you can even just a little bit start to chip in and don't even think, right? But that's $83. I will see if it comes down there. I do expect, even if price dips below 173, we might see some a strength build up, which will take weeks and months, because these type of things, when they're constantly falling, don't just turn around on a dime. So, but yeah, 130 to $126 is where it's a pick. Okay, you may see some rebounds build up in this thing then, and some strength build up. But again, don't get too excited. We are not seeing any strength. But also, what I want to mention here is that, let's see, their next earnings estimate is 2.8, right? So what I want to also put a confluence here together with is back when their price was, let's say, around 125, pretty much where I'm saying where the strongest, one of the demand zone is. What were their earnings back then? Their EPS was around 0.71, and revenue was 723 million or so. Definitely their revenue is higher, but what I'm saying is in comparison, even just with margins like EPS, right? There it will be still higher even after their cut guidance. It will still be higher, um, per quarter, like what it was back at the same price around. So 2.8, and back then at 130 around whenever they had their earnings, it was just at 0.71, 0.75, and then slowly and slowly started to increase to 1.6. So but anyways, like, and that's where price was already back then also getting up to $170. So even with the comparison of the margins, this may start to look a value buy at that point. Definitely you combine that together with the technicals confirmation, because technicals confirmation is the, you have to have a technical confirmation. Without that, you are just, no, yeah, you are just then expecting, right? You are hoping. So technical confirmation is very important. Okay, that is the, the thing that will, you know get you ahead of many other traders. So, and definitely, like, even if we come down $82, right? Like, that's something I don't think we can yet. We don't see that earnings that far, but I think this is the closest one. They had their earnings back then like 0.43, even at like $81. So it's like it's a definitely a value buy at that point if it gets to that. So even, yeah, so even though it may look like that, it's falling, it's definitely at a closer demand zone, but we have to see some stabilization and some technical breakouts that I just mentioned, at least getting about 190. I'm on the daily interval now. If we don't break below $170 region, this yellow area. So yeah, you can see it's like a complete brutal crash, but tomorrow is another day after earnings. That definitely things may try to turn around, but right now I'm not seeing well, we'll have to see signs of that, but these are the zones to watch. And as I said, as if it gets much cheaper in the price, definitely it's gonna become value buy as per the things also I showed you with the previous earnings and even their current guidance. Even after their cut and guidance cut, it may look like a value buy, and combine that together with the technicals confirmation, it's going to look really good. Definitely, I'll be keeping an eye on this, and I'll be talking to my members on Patreon whenever this thing becomes a really good buy. So definitely, if you want to be part of, all those, right away coverage on many of these talks that I do for the members, check out my Patreon links in the description of this video. There are also tools. Check out that. Also, you can also get a discount if you happen to join a longer term membership for the tools. Again, details are in the description of this video. You will receive onboarding videos as well on how to use the tools. And with that, I'll see you in my next videos, guys. Take care. Bye.